Every legend hides a truth. Every myth whispers a warning. Welcome to the Mythic Hour, where the forgotten gods and cursed stories return to life. The alley was silent, but not empty. A young traveler walking through Kyoto at midnight feels the air grow heavier with every step. The lanterns lining the street flicker as if something unseen passes by. Then comes the sound, soft, almost delicate, like silk brushing against the stone path. The traveler turns, and for a brief second, he sees her. A woman dressed in white. Long, disheveled black hair covers most of her pale face. Her arms hang unnaturally at her sides, limp but deliberate. Her eyes, dark, empty wells, stare into his soul. By the time he blinks, she's gone. But his skin burns cold, his chest feels crushed, and he knows, he has met a Yurei. Across centuries of Japanese folklore, few beings inspire more dread than Yurei, the restless dead. Unlike Western ghosts, who drift between worlds without purpose, Yurei always return with intent. They are agents of justice, punishment, or vengeance. They do not appear randomly. They come for someone. Japan's haunted spirits have existed in whispered stories for hundreds of years, but they are not relics of the past. They live on in the shadows of alleys, the depth of wells, and the corners of your vision when you least expect it. And the most terrifying thing about Yurei is this: they don't vanish until their purpose is fulfilled. A wrong must be avenged. A betrayal must be punished. A broken promise must be repaid in blood or madness. In Japanese belief, death is not an end but a transformation. The living and the dead are not separate worlds. They overlap like mist on water. But when the soul cannot pass peacefully into the afterlife, when hatred or sorrow chains it to the earth, the result is a Yurei, white-clad phantoms, cursed to linger. And unlike the polite, mournful spirits of some cultures, Yurei are merciless. They are ghosts of justice, of revenge, of unfinished business that cuts deep enough to scar eternity. So what are Yurei really? Where did they come from? And why do their stories continue to terrify not only Japan but the entire world? To understand them, we must step back into history, into an era when Japan's nights were darker, its alleys more silent, and its fears more raw. Because before horror movies like The Ring and Ju-on, before video games and ghost tours, there were the original tales, whispered at night, painted on folding screens, and performed in kabuki theaters that left audiences trembling. This is the story of Yurei. And like the spirits themselves, it is not a tale that rests easy. To understand the Yurei, you must first understand death in Japan. Unlike Western traditions, where death often represents a clean departure of the soul to heaven or hell, Japan's spiritual beliefs blur the lines. Influenced by Shinto, which sees spirits in all things, and Buddhism, which teaches that suffering clings to the soul, Japanese death rituals were designed to help the spirit cross peacefully into the next world. But sometimes that passage fails. A violent death, betrayal, heartbreak, or unresolved desire can trap a soul between realms. Instead of joining the ancestors, the spirit lingers on earth, driven by one consuming purpose: to finish what life denied them. That spirit is called a Yurei. The word itself means faint soul or dim spirit. But there is nothing faint about their presence. When a Yurei appears, it changes everything. The temperature drops, animals go silent, and people know they are being watched by something unnatural. Over centuries, artists, playwrights, and monks painted and described them with chilling consistency. White burial kimono, the same white garment used to dress corpses for funerals. It marks the spirit as one who belongs to the world of the dead. Long, black, disheveled hair. In life, women tied their hair neatly. In death, the hair was unbound, symbolizing chaos, sorrow, and rage. Hands dangling limp at the wrists, often floating or hanging as if broken, their arms emphasize unnaturalness, signaling they no longer follow the rules of the living. No feet, Yurei often drift without touching the ground. Some are drawn in art without legs at all, fading into a misty tale. Pale, expressionless faces, sometimes beautiful, sometimes distorted by rage, but always unsettling, because they stare without blinking. If you've ever seen the ring Sadako crawling from the TV, or Juon's Kayako dragging herself down the stairs, you've seen modern film recreations of this ancient design. A soul doesn't become a Yurei for no reason. They are born from emotions so strong it outlives the body. Anen, a grudge, hatred, or resentment that refuses to fade. Unfinished duty, a promise broken, a mission undone, a vow betrayed. Tragic death, murder, betrayal, or suicide often births Yurei who demand retribution. Loneliness, even deep sorrow can tie a spirit to the earth, repeating its pain forever. The strongest of these become Onryo, vengeful spirits whose rage can destroy not just one person but entire families, even whole villages. These are the spirits kabuki plays once warned about, and even today, Shinto priests still perform rituals to pacify them. The Japanese don't see Yurei as just scary stories. They are deeply woven into cultural fears of dishonor, betrayal, and injustice. Where Western ghosts might appear to warn or frighten, Japanese ghosts appear to correct. They bring justice. They deliver revenge. And they will not stop until balance is restored. For centuries, families feared the idea of creating a Yurei. It meant performing funerals properly, respecting the dead, and fulfilling one's obligations. Because if you wrong someone so deeply that their soul can't rest, they might come back for you. And history shows us, many did. Every ghost in Japanese folklore follows patterns, as if bound by unseen laws. These rules of Yurei are what make them both terrifying and inevitable, because once they rise, there's almost nothing you can do to stop them. Yurei are most often seen between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., a time the Japanese call the witching hour. In the quietest part of the night, when lanterns flicker and the world grows still, the veil between the living and the dead weakens. Many old Kaiden, ghost stories, describe footsteps in empty corridors, whispers outside paper sliding doors, or the creak of floorboards where no one should walk, all happening in this darkest hour. A Yurei is never random. It doesn't haunt for sport. It returns because something powerful in life tethers it. A wife betrayed. A warrior killed unjustly. A servant accused falsely. Until that wrong is corrected, or its target destroyed, the Yurei cannot move on. It is not free. Its haunting is not choice, but compulsion. Unlike Western spirits, who may linger vaguely, Yurei are direct. They are attached to either a location tied to their death or the people responsible for their suffering. A drowned woman may haunt the river where she died. A murdered servant may haunt the well where her body was discarded. A betrayed wife may follow her unfaithful husband no matter where he flees. This is why their presence feels inevitable. You can run, but if the spirit's rage is bound to you, it will follow. While each Yurei has its own story, their appearances are almost identical. This consistency is what makes them instantly recognizable and horrifying. People across Japan, even centuries apart, describe the same thing: white kimono, long black hair, floating figure. It is not a coincidence. It is a warning. You cannot banish a Yurei with charms or holy words alone. Ordinary prayers will not soothe them. The only ways to stop them are: fulfill their desire, sometimes a promise kept, a truth revealed, or a wrong avenged can release the spirit. Appeasement rituals. Shinto priests or Buddhist monks may perform elaborate ceremonies, offering prayers, incense, and food to guide the soul to rest. Acceptance of their justice. In some stories, the victim simply dies, fulfilling the Yurei's need for vengeance, after which the spirit finally vanishes. But until one of these conditions is met, the Yurei remains. In old Japan, these rules were not just stories. They were moral warnings. Betray your spouse, and you risk creating a ghost wife who will haunt your bloodline. Murder unjustly, and you will be pursued beyond death itself. Fail to respect the dead, and their restless spirit may never forgive you. These tales were society's way of teaching responsibility. Because Yurei are more than monsters. They are reflections of human cruelty and injustice, made eternal. And some of them are so powerful, their names are still feared today. For centuries, Japan has whispered of spirits so vengeful, so relentless, that their names alone could freeze a man's blood. These are not just ghost stories told around campfires. They are warnings carved into cultural memory. And 3 tales, above all, have defined the terror of the Yurei. It began with betrayal. Oiwa was a beautiful woman in Edo period Tokyo, married to a man named Iman, a ronin, masterless samurai. But Iman grew restless. He wanted wealth, power, and another woman, something his loyal wife could not provide. So he plotted her death. He laced her food with poison, not enough to kill her quickly, but enough to disfigure her face. Oiwa's once beautiful features melted into horror, her skin scarred, her eye bulging. In agony and despair, she died, betrayed by the man she trusted most. But Oiwa did not stay dead. On the night of Iman's wedding to his new bride, he lifted the veil of his new wife, only to see Oiwa's ruined face staring back at him. In terror, he swung his sword, killing the bride instantly. Yet Oiwa's face remained, shifting and reappearing, haunting him no matter where he fled. He killed again and again, driven mad by visions, until at last his life unraveled. Oiwa's vengeance was complete. The tale, immortalized in kabuki theater as Yatsuya Kaiden, became Japan's most famous ghost story. Even today, actors and filmmakers who adapt her story visit her grave to pray before production, fearful that Oiwa's spirit might curse them if they fail to show respect. Not all Yurei haunt out of rage. Some haunt out of sorrow. Okiku was a servant in the household of a powerful samurai. Among her duties was guarding a set of 10 valuable plates, heirlooms of the family. One day, her master, desiring her as more than a servant, attempted to seduce her. When she refused, he tricked her by hiding one of the plates and accusing her of losing it. For a servant, losing such a treasure was punishable by death. He gave her a cruel choice: become his mistress or die. Okiku chose neither. She refused him again. And in rage, he threw her into a well, drowning her. But she did not rest. Night after night, her voice echoed from the well, counting softly. 1 plate, 2 plates, 3 plates. She would always stop at 9. And then, in a wail of despair, scream for the missing 10th plate. Her ghostly counting drove the samurai to madness, until finally he, too, perished. The well where she died still exists in Japan, at Himeji Castle, and visitors say the sound of counting can still be heard when the night is quiet enough. Not all Yurei were humble women seeking justice. Some were warriors whose spirits could shake a city. In the 10th century, Taira no Masakado, a samurai rebel, challenged the imperial court. For a time, he ruled much of eastern Japan, declaring himself new emperor. But the court could not allow his rebellion to stand. They hunted him down, killed him, and severed his head. His head was displayed in Kyoto as a warning. But then the strange began. According to legend, Masakado's head refused to decay. His eyes remained open, glaring with rage. Then one night his head lifted into the air and flew, carried by his fury across the country, until it landed in the district of Shibasaki, modern-day Tokyo. Locals buried it in a mound. But Masakado's ghost remained so restless that shrines were built to appease him. Even in modern times, construction companies that tried to move his burial site reported accidents, fires, and deaths among workers. To this day, his resting place in Tokyo's financial district is treated with reverence. Businessmen and politicians alike visit to offer prayers, fearing that angering Masakado's Yurei might bring disaster. Oiwa, Masakado. These names are more than stories. They are reminders that betrayal, injustice, and arrogance carry consequences that even death cannot erase. Their spirits still linger in Japanese imagination, not only as theater and folklore, but as a living fear. Because if the dead can rise for justice, then no crime is ever truly buried. Some believe Yurei are relics of old Japan, ghosts trapped in kabuki plays and dusty folktales. But ask anyone who has walked alone through a Tokyo subway station at midnight, or driven through the winding tunnels of rural Japan, and you'll hear a different truth. Yurei are still here. Late at night in Tokyo, a businessman boards the last train home. The platform is nearly empty, except for a woman in a white kimono, standing by the tracks. Her hair is long, wet, and clings to her face. The businessman looks twice. A woman dressed like that in modern Tokyo? Impossible. He turns away. But when he glances back, she's closer. Silent. Watching. Stories like this are common in Japanese train stations, many of which are infamous for suicides. Travelers whisper about Yurei who appear near the tracks, replaying their final moments or luring others toward the same fate. In some stations, blue lights have been installed above the platforms to calm distressed passengers, and, some believe, to ward off restless spirits. Japan's mountains are cut with endless dark tunnels, and many of them are haunted. Take Old Chusetsu Tunnel, abandoned after World War II. Locals warn of a woman in white who appears in the headlights of passing cars. Drivers who stop say she vanishes. Drivers who don't, sometimes never make it out of the tunnel. Or Kiyotaki Tunnel in Kyoto, said to be one of the most cursed places in Japan. Built with forced labor in the 1920s, it is haunted by workers who died during construction. Travelers report screams in the darkness, sudden hands pressing against their car windows, and even clocks stopping when they enter. One of the strangest places haunted by Yurei are Japan's infamous love hotels. In Osaka, a man checked into a room with his girlfriend. At first, everything seemed normal, until they noticed the mirror. In its reflection, a third figure stood behind them. A woman in white, her face blurred, her hands dangling lifelessly. When the man spun around, the room was empty. But when he looked back at the mirror, she was still there. They fled the hotel that night, and the story spread. Many say that love hotels, often built over old houses or crime scenes, attract Yurei drawn to betrayal, lust, and death. Even those who don't believe in ghosts cannot escape the Yurei, because they have become Japan's most iconic horror export. Ring, 1998, introduced the world to Sadako, a ghostly girl with long black hair who crawled out of a television set to kill. Ju-on, 2002, gave us Kayako, a woman whose contorted body and death rattle haunt a cursed house. Both are modern incarnations of the classic Yurei design: white kimono, black hair, pale face, vengeance unfulfilled. And audiences worldwide felt the same dread that Japanese villagers once felt centuries ago. The idea of a spirit that doesn't simply scare you, but comes for you, relentlessly, until justice is done, struck something primal in human fear. It doesn't matter if you're in medieval Kyoto or modern Tokyo, the rules remain the same. Yurei appear where sorrow and betrayal linger. They haunt where blood was spilled or promises were broken. And the living, no matter how advanced or modern, still feel powerless against them. Because how do you reason with a ghost whose only desire is revenge? When most people think of ghosts, they imagine lost souls, wandering, harmless, maybe even pitiful. But in Japan, the Yurei are not pitiful. They are purposeful. And their purpose is almost always justice. In old Japan, society was rigid. Power belonged to samurai, nobles, and men. Women, servants, and peasants often had no voice in life. If they were wronged, they had little hope of revenge. But in death, the powerless gained power, the silenced gained a voice, and the oppressed became unstoppable. This is why so many Yurei legends involve women who were betrayed, mistreated, or murdered by men of higher status. In life, they were victims. In death, they became Onryo, vengeful spirits capable of terrifying justice. It was a warning: treat others with cruelty, and the one you wronged may rise stronger than you ever imagined. Yurei do not kill indiscriminately. Their vengeance is precise. Oiwa destroyed the man who poisoned her. Okiku's sorrow drove her master insane. Masakado's spirit haunted the very government that betrayed him. Sometimes, the punishment extends beyond a single person. In legends, entire families are cursed, generations plagued by illness, madness, and misfortune, all traced back to the grudge of one restless soul. Unlike Western horror, where ghosts are to be fought or banished, Japanese culture treats Yurei with a strange duality: fear and respect. People fear their wrath, yes, but they also respect their justice. Shrines are built not just to ward them off, but to honor them. Offerings of incense, flowers, and prayers are given, not out of love, but acknowledgement. The message is clear: justice belongs not only to the living. If humans fail to deliver it, the spirits will. Even today, Shinto priests and Buddhist monks perform rituals to calm restless spirits. These include ofuda, paper talismans, charms placed at shrines or in homes to ward off vengeful spirits. Obon Festival, a yearly event where families welcome ancestral spirits back with lanterns, food, and prayers, ensuring they feel respected and don't linger angrily. Q. Memorial services, special prayers for those who died tragically, so their spirits might find peace instead of vengeance. Because the Japanese know, ignoring a wronged soul does not make it go away. It only makes it stronger. At their core, Yurei stories remind people of one thing: injustice cannot be buried. It will rise. These ghosts live on because they represent truths humans cannot ignore. Betrayal leaves scars. Cruelty carries consequences. And death is not an escape from responsibility. That is why, centuries later, the tales of Oiwa, Okiku, and Masakado still command respect. That is why films like The Ring and Ju-on still terrify audiences worldwide. And that is why in Japan, the Yurei remain not just stories, but warnings. The night was quiet in a Tokyo suburb. A young woman hurried home from work, her footsteps echoing on the empty street. The lamps overhead glowed faintly, their light flickering against the breeze. Then she heard it. The sound of footsteps behind her. Slow, heavy. But when she turned, the street was empty. Her pace quickened. The footsteps followed. She glanced again, nothing. Only silence and the distant hum of the city. Finally, at the corner near her apartment, she looked once more. And there she was. A pale woman, standing beneath the lamp. Dressed in white, hair cascading over her face, arms hanging lifelessly at her sides. Her head tilted, her gaze piercing through the curtain of hair. She did not move, but her presence pressed against the woman's chest, stealing her breath. When the commuter blinked, the figure was gone. But the air was colder, and she knew what she had seen: a Yurei. Stories like this surface across Japan even today. From train stations to tunnels, from apartments to office buildings, Yurei are said to appear where sorrow lingers. Some say they are illusions of the mind, born from stress and exhaustion. Others believe they are fragments of history replaying themselves. But for those who feel the sudden chill in the air, hear the sound of counting from an empty well, or see the pale woman in white at the edge of their vision, the explanation doesn't matter. The fear is real. Yurei endure not because they scare us, but because they remind us of something deeper. They remind us that justice cannot always be silenced. They are the voice of the wronged, the power of the powerless, the eternal shadow cast by human cruelty. And in that sense, they are not just terrifying, they are righteous. Every betrayal leaves an echo. Every injustice leaves a scar. And sometimes, those echoes and scars take form. So the next time you walk alone at night in Japan, pay attention to the silence. Listen for the rustle of silk, the faint sound of counting, or the dragging of bare feet against stone. Because the Yurei do not rest. They wait. And maybe, just maybe, they are waiting for you. Japan's most haunted spirits are more than folklore. They are reminders, warnings, and living fears that span centuries. So the next time you watch a horror movie and see a pale woman in white with long, black hair, you'll know the truth. She's not just a character. She's a Yurei. And her story isn't over. If the myth still haunts you, don't forget to subscribe for more mythic tales that were never meant to be forgotten.